A man drives anxiously along the road toward Mount Jang, searching for a secluded place, while the woman beside him asks nervously if he even knows where he is going. Distracted by her complaints, he suddenly runs over a dog on the dark road and slams on the brakes. He lifts the animal's lifeless body and opens the trunk of the car, where his wife is being held captive. Through tears, she begs him not to kill her, but he ignores her desperate pleas and throws the dead dog inside. When they arrive at their destination, the man tears down a brick wall that covers the entrance to a cave. When his lover reaches the place, she recoils in horror as the wife exhales her final breath. After leaving the body inside, they begin to walk away, but suddenly they hear the woman's voice calling out. The man removes a loose brick to look inside and hears his wife's voice again, followed by others, even their own voices echoing back at them. Some time later, Hee-yeon and her husband Min-ho decide to move to Mount Jang, hoping that the change will help Hee-yeon's mother, Sun-ya, who suffers from dementia, recover some of her memories. While resting outside, Sun-ya sees her granddaughter Jun-hee approaching, but mistakes her for her own sister. Soon after, she begins hearing voices coming from the forest and quickly warns the child that something frightening is nearby, rushing her back into the house. After running errands in town, Hee-yeon notices a ragged boy walking down the street and realizes he is wearing the same shoes as her missing son, Junsa. She runs after him but fails to catch up. When she returns home, she begins unpacking the boy's belongings, searching desperately for clues. She tells Min-ho that she wants to resume the search, but he discourages her, reminding her that 5 years have already passed. In tears, she reproaches him for once promising they would never give up, and in the end, he reluctantly agrees to ask the police to reopen the investigation. One day, a brother and sister arrive at the house looking for their lost dog. Hee-yeon tells them they must have mistaken their pet, Mong, for hers, but encourages them to keep searching. As they leave, the boy hears barking coming from a trail that leads toward the cave, and the two follow the sound. Along the way, they discover an abandoned car with a shattered windshield and stains of dried blood. When they reach the cave entrance, the girl slips her hand through a hole in the wall and calls for the dog while lighting the inside with her phone. Suddenly, a hand grabs her and drags her inside. Her terrified brother leans forward to look, and another hand suddenly reaches out toward him. He stumbles backward in panic, but quickly calms down when his sister emerges unharmed. The children later tell Hee-yeon and Min-ho what happened, and the couple goes to investigate the place themselves. While Hee-yeon searches through the forest, she finds a young girl standing alone who refuses to answer her questions. When Min-ho tries to approach and touch her, the child recoils in fear. At that moment, the children begin screaming for help, and Min-ho runs toward the cave. Hee-yeon tries to follow, but the girl grabs her clothes and holds her back. She asks Hee-yeon to wait and heads toward the cave herself, where Min-ho is forcing open a sealed door. In the darkness, a mutilated woman suddenly lunges at him, knocking him to the ground. Moments later, she dies on top of him while he struggles to push the body away. Police soon arrive to investigate the scene, and Detective Kim discovers an old photograph of a young girl standing beside a man. When the chief arrives, Hee-yeon, exhausted from repeating the story again and again, decides to return home. That same night, the girl found in the forest knocks on their door, and Hee-yeon lets her in, asking her husband to allow the child to stay. Meanwhile, Detective Kim begins reviewing old cases connected to the cave and discovers a disturbing pattern. Many of them involve missing people who, before disappearing, reported hearing the voices of deceased relatives calling them toward the cave. While bathing the girl, Hee-yeon notices bruises and marks of abuse on her body. She tries dressing her in Jun-hee's clothes, but they are too large, so she instead gives her some of Junsa's old clothing. As the girl listens to Hee-yeon and Jun-hee talking nearby, she begins imitating the child's voice, calling Hee-yeon Mom and claiming that her name is Jun-hee as well. The next day, Hee-yeon and Min-ho begin to feel a burning irritation in their eyes, assuming it must be some kind of infection. Suddenly, they hear noises outside and notice a blind woman walking away from the house. When Hee-yeon calls out to her, the woman warns them to leave immediately, insisting that the place is dangerous because she has started hearing the voices again. Inside the house, the strange girl watches Jun-hee playing and begins copying her laughter and the way she speaks. Min-ho, while preparing medicine for the dogs, hears his daughter's cheerful voice nearby, but grows uneasy when he realizes it was actually the girl from the forest imitating her. At the police station, the detectives track down the owner of the abandoned car. The man suffers from severe vision problems and keeps hearing voices calling him toward the cave. He refuses to answer questions about the mutilated woman whose body was discovered there. Later, back at home, he hears knocking inside a closet, and when he opens it, he hears his wife's voice begging for help. Terrified, he collapses to the floor when he sees a hand appear in the mirror's reflection, trying to emerge from the other side. One morning, as Min-ho prepares Jun-hee for school, he asks Hee-yeon if she has informed the police about the girl. When he learns that the child claims to have the same name as their daughter and even sounds like her, he insists that they take her to the authorities, worried that her parents might be desperately searching for her. Meanwhile, Sun-ya begins hearing the voice of her brother calling out to her. While searching for the girl around the house, Hee-yeon opens a closet and finds her hiding inside. Suddenly, Sun-ya appears behind them holding a knife and attempts to stab the child. Hee-yeon manages to disarm her and runs with the girl to the shed outside, barricading themselves inside. Sun-ya pounds on the door, shouting that the voice she hears is not actually her brother. Meanwhile, the girl hides inside the dog's cage, clutching a broken mirror in her hand, while Hee-yeon tries to calm her down, projecting onto the child the same affection she once gave to her lost son. Later, Min-ho enters Sun-ya's room and notices that her mirror has been covered with strips of tape. After peeling some of it away, he leaves to tell Hee-yeon that they should send her back to the nursing home, explaining that caring for her has become far too difficult. That night, the girl approaches Hee-yeon and says she cannot sleep. As Hee-yeon tucks her into bed, the child asks about Junsa, explaining that she heard Hee-yeon repeating his name in her sleep. Hee-yeon tells her that he is Jun-hee's brother and recalls the last time she saw him. She had left him with Sun-ya at the supermarket, and the old woman held him tightly while he cried. Shortly afterward, Sun-ya was found standing alone, staring blankly into space while holding the boy's toy. Min-ho, increasingly uncomfortable with the girl's presence, orders Hee-yeon to take her to the police station. She refuses, confessing that the child reminds her too much of her missing son and promising that she will resume the search for him. Min-ho, however, believes the boy is already dead and begs her to accept the truth. That same night, Sun-ya once again hears the voices of her brother and her deceased sister calling her. Confused by her illness, she follows the sound into the forest until it leads her toward the cave. The next morning, the family searches for her but cannot find her anywhere. Inside Sun-ya's room, Min-ho notices something strange in the mirror, a reflection of a liquid that is not actually there. When he removes more of the tape covering the glass, he discovers two handprints pressed against the surface. Hours later, he too disappears after asking the strange girl if she has seen Sun-ya. Hee-yeon reports everything to the police, and Detective Kim tells her that many similar cases have occurred in the area, all mentioning the same mysterious girl. When he shows her a photograph that was found in the forest, Hee-yeon immediately recognizes the child in the picture. Kim then explains that the photo was taken sometime in the 1980s. While reviewing old records, the detective finds that some witnesses claimed the girl never spoke at all, while others insisted she invited one of the victims to follow her. In the forest, the blind woman crosses paths with Hee-yeon and brings her to her house. There she explains that the creature responsible for the disappearances is known as the Tiger of Jangsan, a being capable of imitating human voices to lure people to their deaths. Long ago, a shaman who served the creature gained great power from it, but eventually became possessed and performed a ritual in which he sacrificed his own daughter. After he vanished, the deaths in the forest began. The woman warns Hee-yeon not to trust the strange girl, because her appearance often signals that the shaman is about to return. She explains that the creature feeds on emotions such as guilt, anger, and longing, draining the energy of its victims, and that the vision problems people experience are one of the first signs of its influence. Before letting her leave, the woman gives Hee-yeon a talisman that can protect her, at least for a short time. Hee-yeon rushes back home, while Jun-hee wakes up with her eyes burning and irritated. The girl hears her mother's voice calling and walks toward the bathroom, but suddenly runs away in terror when she sees the shaman emerging from the mirror. She flees to the shed and encounters the strange forest girl, who is holding a broken mirror while repeating Hee-yeon's voice. When Hee-yeon arrives, she finds the two girls hiding inside a closet. Jun-hee tells her that the forest girl saved her. At that moment, Hee-yeon remembers what the blind woman said, that the girl knows the path that leads into the tiger's territory. Determined to save both her husband and her mother, she asks the child to guide her to the cave. The girl agrees only after Hee-yeon promises to protect her and never abandon her. Before leaving, Hee-yeon covers every mirror in the house, warns Jun-hee not to trust anyone, and tells her to call Detective Kim if she does not return by the next day. Once inside the cave, the girl warns her not to respond to any voice she hears. However, Hee-yeon suddenly hears the desperate cries of her husband and her daughter, and in a moment of panic she calls out to Jun-hee, ignoring the girl's pleading warnings not to do it. The possessed shaman appears and begins chasing them through the darkness. Hee-yeon is nearly caught in a narrow passage, but the girl helps her escape. Together they reach a chamber filled with mirrors, where countless voices echo all around them. Confused and overwhelmed, Hee-yeon leans against one of the mirrors, not reacting when the shaman grabs her and tries to drag her inside. At that moment, Min-ho, now completely blind, smashes the mirror and tells her to escape through a hole in the ceiling. As Hee-yeon climbs upward, she receives a phone call from Detective Kim and desperately asks for help, but when she feels someone grabbing her leg, she realizes it is the shaman and lets go, falling back down. She, Min-ho, and the girl then run through another tunnel. The child hugs Hee-yeon and begs her not to leave her behind, but Hee-yeon's vision is beginning to fade, and she continues forward with Min-ho. Just before they escape, the girl tearfully reminds her of the promise she made. As the mirrors inside the chamber begin to shatter, the tiger's power starts to weaken. Min-ho manages to escape the cave and runs straight into Detective Kim. Hee-yeon, however, suddenly hears the voice of Junsa begging her to stay. Despite her husband's warnings, she runs back toward the child and embraces the girl as if she were her long-lost son. Min-ho escapes to safety, while deep inside the cave, the girl leads Hee-yeon farther into the darkness, finally satisfied to have a mother who will stay with her and care for her. According to Korean folklore, the tiger of Jangsan can imitate the sound of a woman crying or the gentle murmur of a stream in order to lure people into the forest. But in this village, the creature is even more dangerous, possessing humans and exploiting their emotions to drag them into its hidden lair. Most of the victims reported seeing the mysterious girl shortly before they disappeared. Although some villagers believe she is evil, she seems to be both a victim and a tool of the tiger and the shaman who controls it. She does not always act with the intention of harming people, sometimes even warning or protecting them, as she did with Jun-hee. Yet her desperate need for affection ultimately drives her to manipulate Hee-yeon's love for her missing son, ensuring that she will never be left alone again.